Of all the motorsports one could participate in, the two-wheeled kind has always been for the most daring, aside from maybe soapbox racing. But guts has never been the only prerequisite. Grand Prix motorcycle racing is consistently changing and evolving, so you have to not only have balls but also brains just to keep up. And yet, the winningest racer in Grand Prix history, holding 122 Grand Prix victories and 15 titles, made a name for himself, dominating multiple classes and with multiple manufacturers at a time when development was the most rapid in all of motorcycle history. This is the story of the greatest motorcycle racer of all time and how he came to change the sport forever, the great Giacomo Agostini. Now, before we get too far into the story, I want to tell you guys about something that I think you're going to like called Opera. Opera is, in essence, a web browser taken to another level. And if you guys spend a lot of time online like I do, you should definitely check it out. There's so many unique features that I've never seen before on another browser or on a standard browser. For example, there's this thing called Aria, which is basically AI built into the browser, and it makes it so that you can instantly chat and ask it questions. It'll even respond in your writing style if you want. But Opera has so many other features as well. One that I absolutely love for my workflow with these videos, with getting footage and researching, is the way that you can organize and group tabs with separate workspaces. It keeps things really simple and uncluttered. Opera even has a built-in VPN and ad blocker. There's loads of other features that might fit your needs. If you guys want to check them out, I've put a link in the description below to make it easy. And big shout out to Opera. Alright guys, let's jump back into the story. Now, much of the information in this video comes from this awesome book on Agostini's life and career called Champion of Champions. Definitely check it out if you guys want to dig deeper. Now, young Giacomo grew up well off in a small town in northern Italy, the oldest of 4 brothers. His first proper motorcycle was a 125cc Perilla that his friend convinced him to ride in a local event, and that was kind of the beginning of him getting into racing. At 16, he was finally old enough to ride on public roads, and it was his father who bought him the motorcycle that would really inspire his passion for racing, a 175cc Moto Guzzi. Young Giacomo had a problem though, one many aspiring racers face: his parents. Unlike soon-to-be rival Mike Halewood, Agostini's parents didn't want him to race, and he didn't grow up in a racing family. But speed on 2 wheels seemed to just be in his blood. And we all know, if you're a parent, you know what this is. Parents can't really stop these things. It's like me trying to stop my son from going Mach speed on his bicycle down our cul-de-sac. It's just futile. His family would come around to support him though. But boys will be boys. For young adolescent Giacomo, this meant honing his riding skills aboard these small motorcycles that he had growing up, both around the windy mountainous Italian roads of his hometown, and he also spent loads of time riding on the dirt. One of the things Giacomo had going for him early on was his temperament, something that no doubt was exemplified by his parents. When it came to racing, let's just say he wasn't very Italian in his approach. He always kept his cool no matter what happened, and this made it so that he could look at situations logically, whether that was needing to overtake the entire field or adapt to a new motorcycle or new team. Riding really came naturally for him, and his first foray into racing would come with the company Moto Marini. For Giacomo's 18th birthday, he was hoping to get his first race bike, but his parents refused. So he took some of his own money he'd saved up and put down a deposit on a small 175 Moto Marini. His first race aboard the little bike was a local hill climb event in which he took second, and when his dad found out that he was actually racing, he went and bought him a sports car just to try to get the kid to get over this whole motorcycle thing. But young Giacomo's results had him really fired up. He began dominating local hill climb events, and Alfonso Marini, owner of Moto Marini, was amazed by this young talent riding their machine. So they offered him a factory-ready 175cc Moto Marini race bike, and just like that, he was a works rider for a real factory. Agostini was successful from the get-go on the racetrack, winning 4 of 4 events and the Italian Junior Championship. In early September of that year, the Italian Grand Prix at Monza was approaching, and Giacomo approached Marini about racing a full-sized 250cc Works Marini at the highest level, and they obliged. He led the race for 3 laps but was forced to retire early from mechanical problems. These were the very best riders in the world, and if it weren't for these mechanical issues, he might have beat everybody. Alfonso Marini was convinced to keep him on as a potential future star. Sadly for Marini, it's hard to keep such a gem out from the public eye. At Imola, Agostini dominated the entire race, setting a faster pace on his 250 than the 350 winner on a Honda 4-cylinder. And after winning the 350cc Italian title and taking 4th at the Italian Grand Prix, the young rider once again caught the eye of a different manufacturer, the great Count Agusta of MV Agusta. Racing for MV Agusta meant riding alongside another world champion, Mike Hailwood, soon to be one of Agostini's greatest rivals and also one of the greatest motorcycle racers of all time. At this point, Hailwood had already won the premier 500cc class 2 years in a row and would go on to win the next 2. As much as he may have been a rising young star, it would be tough to overshadow Hailwood at this point. He had just won all but one race in the premier class for 63. 64 would be Agostini's first year with MV. Though Hailwood would take the 500cc titles, they had multiple battles, but Agostini's main rival this season was in the 350cc class, where him and Jim Redman would go head-to-head. At Nuremberg that year, the weather was really bad, but it didn't stop 120,000 spectators from turning out to one of the greatest days of Grand Prix motorcycle racing ever. It was here that Agostini followed Redman in second on the new 350cc Triple MV. On lap 9, Agostini made the pass, forcing Redman to chase him the rest of the race, and then it started sprinkling and Redman and his Honda went straight into a hedge. Agostini was just too fast, lapping most of the field, bringing home MV's first 350cc victory, and the final race in this class took place in Japan, and it would decide the championship for either Redman or Agostini, but Agostini's MV would go down due to mechanical failure. But by 1966, he was already challenging the great Mike Hailwood for the 500cc title. Although Hailwood edged him out that year, Agostini was just getting started. As the 66 season rolled around, it became clear Hailwood was leaving MV and heading to Honda to race in the 500cc class aboard their all-new 5-cylinder race bike, and this would be the first time a Japanese company would compete in this class. Count Agusta decided not to replace Hailwood. He knew he really had something in Agostini, and so only one rider would represent the mark at the highest level of racing. The rivalry between Mike Hailwood at Honda and Giacomo Agostini with MV is truly the stuff of legend, right there with Lorenzo and Pedrosa, but the two respected each other all the way through. Despite most of their duels happening on the Grand Prix circuit, the Isle of Man TT of 1967 may be remembered as their greatest race. The Isle of Man TT is known for its grueling 37-mile mountain course, and this was really the ultimate test of a rider's skill, and also their courage and endurance. The senior TT race, which is the most prestigious event of the TT week, saw Hailwood and Agostini go head-to-head in a showdown that would go down in history. From the start, the race was a battle of titans. Hailwood had his extensive experience at the Isle of Man. Hailwood really had a sort of mastery of the course, while Agostini was newer to the TT, but he was demonstrating his incredible talent and just the raw power of his MV Agusta. As the race progressed, it became clear that this would be a two-horse race between Agostini and Hailwood. The two riders exchanged the lead multiple times, pushing their machines and themselves to the absolute limit. The sound of these multi-cylinder Honda and MV Agusta four-strokes echoed through the island as the two men navigated the dangerous twists, turns, and jumps of the mountain course at record-breaking speeds. By the time the race reached the halfway point, Hailwood had managed to narrow Agostini's lead to just a couple of seconds, but then, as fate would have it, Hailwood lost valuable time fiddling with his twist grip. With that, Agostini's lead went all the way up to 11.6 seconds, and the stage was set for an intense showdown as Hailwood, really riding at the very edge, began hunting down the young Italian rider. By the 5th lap, Hailwood had clawed back the gap, and the two riders were really neck and neck, setting the scene for what could have been one of the closest finishes in racing history, but motorsport has a way of delivering heartbreak just as easily as it does glory. As Agostini tackled the mountain section, disaster struck, his chains snapped at Windy Corner. there. He managed to coast back to the pits, but in the chaos, he missed the governor's dip and was disqualified. Halewood seized the opportunity and went on to win the race, setting a new record speed of 105.62 miles per hour. His lap record would remain untouched for 8 years, only to be surpassed in 1975 by Mick Grant on a Kawasaki KR750, racing on a slightly altered circuit. The 1967 Senior TT is often hailed as one of the greatest motorcycle races of all time, not just for this dramatic ending, but for the skill and also the sportsmanship displayed by both Halewood and Agostini. It was a defining moment in the careers for both riders. Halewood even admitted that if Agostini's chain hadn't broken, that Agostini would have probably beat him. From 68 to 72, Agostini completely dominated. He was unstoppable in Grand Prix racing. He would win 7 consecutive 500cc world championships with MV Agusta, dominating a sport where this competition was really fierce, and the machines were so unforgiving at this time. His mastery of the 350cc class was equally impressive, winning the world championship in that category 7 times between 68 and 74. His riding style was a perfect blend of aggression and precision, and his understanding of the machines he rode was second to none. And it wasn't the way it is today, where sometimes the guy who wins the championship and takes the title is the person who just doesn't, have as many crashes or is able to podium a lot, get second, get third. No, Agostini was basically winning every single race. Most of these seasons, nobody could touch him. But Agostini's time with MV Agusta was more than just about winning titles. It was about pushing the limits of what was possible on 2 wheels. The combination of Agostini's skills and MV Agusta's engineering prowess at this time really created a juggernaut that was almost unbeatable. His battles with riders like Halewood and Phil Reed were really the stuff of legend, with each race adding to his growing reputation as the best rider in the world. As the 1970s progressed, the dominance of the 4-stroke engines was beginning to wane. The new 2-strokes were faster, they were lighter, and it became clear that they were the future of motorcycle racing. Many really great riders fell off at this point because these manic, powerful 2-strokes, they were a different beast altogether, and you had to ride them different. Agostini was never one to shy away from a challenge, so he made a bold move in 74 and switched to Yamaha, a decision that many thought would really mark the end of his career. But Agostini proved the doubters wrong. In 75, he won his final 500cc World Championship with Yamaha, making him the first rider to win the Premier class on both 4- and 2-stroke machines. This victory was more than just another title for Agostini. It was a kind of statement. He showed that he could adapt to the changing landscape of the sport, and this really cemented his status as a racing icon. By the time he retired from professional racing in 77, Agostini had amassed 15 world championships and 122 Grand Prix victories, records that still stand today. But numbers alone don't tell the full story of Giacomo Agostini. His influence on the sport extended beyond the track. He brought a level of professionalism and dedication that set new standards in the world of motorcycle racing. His success wasn't just about talent. He obviously was incredibly talented. It was just as much, though, about relentless hard work and having an understanding of the technical aspects of racing and an unyielding desire to win. Agostini was known for having meticulous preparation, often working closely with the engineers to fine-tune his machines, ensuring that they were as ready as he was to take on the competition. Now, the GOAT debate is something present in every sport right now. It's kind of tiring, to be honest. Questions like, would Michael Jordan beat LeBron James in a one-on-one? Does Tiger Woods' legacy live up to, say, Arnold Palmer's or Jack Nicklaus's? I think all of this does somewhat miss the point, really. How do we go about comparing riders like Rossi and Agostini or Halewood and Marquez? You can't. These are completely different times, different machines. Today we have new levels of safety equipment and technology that enable riders to really ride completely different than you had to at that time. It's all about facing the competition of your era and understanding the machines and the environment that you're in and what you do with it. And from this lens, I do think it's difficult to debate that Agostini is right there in the conversation for the greatest motorcycle racer of all time. I do think, though, he is probably the most influential racer of all time. It's not just about the records, though, although they are impressive. It's about the way he dominated an era of racing that was really competitive and incredibly dangerous. dangerous. Agostini didn't just win races. He raced like someone from the future. He truly revolutionized the sport. His ability to transition from 4-stroke to 2-stroke machines and still come out on top is something few riders in history could have managed to do. Agostini's impact on motorcycle racing is still felt today. His approach to the sport, combining technical knowledge with sheer riding skill, it really did set a benchmark that future generations of riders would aspire to. He showed that success in racing wasn't just about being fast, it was about being smart and adaptable and prepared. And for me, his legacy isn't just about the titles he won, but it was the way he changed the sport forever by approaching it different. And for that, Agostini isn't just a racing legend, he is arguably the greatest of all time, maybe never to be surpassed. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment if you were around at this time and you watched racing at this time, or maybe just let us know who your favorite Grand Prix motorcycle racer is. Alright, we'll see you in the next one. Ride safe.